I thought staying quiet would be enough. I really did. After everything that happened, after the court, after the conversations, after I stopped explaining myself, I believed silence would settle things. I believed distance would cool emotions. I believed people would eventually understand. I was wrong. Not because silence failed, but because silence does something else. It reveals. After I stayed quiet, my family didn't stop talking. They just stopped talking to me. At first, it was subtle. So subtle that I questioned myself. Messages that used to arrive quickly now took hours, then days. Invitations came with vague details. Something this weekend. We'll see who's around. Nothing direct. Nothing clear. I told myself not to overthink it, that this was normal, that people get busy. But patterns don't lie. I noticed plans happening without me, photos appearing after the fact, inside jokes I wasn't part of anymore. I was still included just enough to avoid confrontation, excluded just enough to send a message. That's when I understood. This wasn't accidental. It was strategic. I started hearing things indirectly. Not accusations, not confrontations, questions. A cousin asked if I was doing okay. An aunt said she hoped I wasn't still upset about everything. Still, as if time had somehow invalidated what happened. No one asked what I needed. No one asked how I felt. They only wanted to know when I would stop being inconvenient. Then someone finally said it out loud. Not to me. About me. They say you've become difficult. Difficult. I sat with that word for a long time. Not angry. Not defensive. Curious. Difficult for who? For the people who had to adjust. For the people who lost access. For the people who didn't like consequences. No one said I was wrong. No one said I lied. No one said I overreacted. Just difficult. That's the word people use when they don't want to talk about accountability. When they want discomfort to disappear without changing anything. I realized then that something had shifted. I wasn't being punished. I was being reframed. When control stops working, the story changes. You don't become the victim. You become the problem. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't correct the narrative. I didn't explain myself again. I watched. Family group chats continued. I was still included. But no one addressed me directly. Messages were neutral. Generic. Safe. Photos were posted. Laughing faces. Inside moments. I existed on the screen, not in the conversation. That kind of exclusion is easy to miss, and impossible to ignore once you see it. I noticed how silence made them uneasy. They expected reaction, anger, defense. Instead, I stayed quiet. That confused them. Silence always does. Then came the gathering. A birthday. A reason to be together. A test I didn't ask for. I almost didn't go. Almost. When I arrived, conversations paused. Not long. Just long enough. The kind of pause that doesn't show up in photos. People smiled. Carefully. Someone hugged me without meeting my eyes. Another asked how work was going and didn't wait for the answer. I felt it immediately. The distance. The caution. The invisible agreement. I noticed how voices lowered when I walked into a room. How topics changed. How laughter stopped halfway through. I heard it again. This time clearly. Just don't bring it up around him. I didn't interrupt. I didn't correct anyone.
I didn't pull someone aside. I stayed where I was. Because here's the truth. If someone wants to misunderstand you, no explanation will ever be enough. That was the moment I understood what this was really about. Not reconciliation, not healing, control. They weren't upset because I spoke up. They were upset because I stopped explaining. I finally saw the real test. Not whether I could defend myself,
but whether I could let go of people who preferred a comfortable lie over an uncomfortable truth. That's when I stopped showing up. No announcement, no dramatic goodbye. I simply declined invitations, one by one. At first, no one noticed. Then they did. Messages started coming in. Short, careful. Everything okay? Did we do something? I didn't answer immediately. Not to punish them, to understand myself. That's when it became clear. They missed access, not connection. When I finally replied, I kept it simple. I need some space. That's when the tone changed. Suddenly, I was dramatic, too sensitive, still difficult. I didn't argue. I didn't clarify. I let them keep that version of me. Because the people who truly know you don't need convincing. And the ones who don't were never listening. Weeks passed, then months. The noise faded. The pressure disappeared. And something unexpected happened. I felt lighter. Not because I won, but because I stopped carrying what was never mine to fix. They can call me difficult. I call it free. They laughed first. I stayed quiet. And when silence stopped being a strategy, it became a boundary. If you've ever watched people rewrite your story just because you stopped explaining, you already know why letting go is sometimes the only answer.